Hello everyone, hope you're well. I'm not even bothering with glasses today because it's very, very humid and I'll just spend the whole video distracting myself, so they're off for the sake of me being able to string a coherent thought together. It's been a pretty average day in terms of stuff going on. One massive highlight for me was a call from school, which it's never nice seeing the number come up on my phone, but actually the number said the number was just his teacher, and she said tomorrow they're going to the local church for a thing in the afternoon. It's the Harvest Festival. Would Oliver like to come with them? She'd really like the whole class to attend, and if I think it's okay for him to go and it won't cause any major upheaval in terms of his routine and so on and so forth, he can stay for lunch, then go and be picked up later than normal. I was delighted because A, he really wants to be part of his class and go to everything, but B, she actually rang and asked, which is fantastic because you know, if you've watched a lot of these videos, that they don't normally do that. They don't normally I get a message on the app saying today the class did this, and I'm like, well, the whole class didn't because Oliver was at home. Today the whole class went here, and I'm like, no, they didn't because Oliver was at home, and I know that other students weren't going. But this time she said, we've made sure we've got enough people, we've made sure that it's suitable. If he's not up to it at the time, he can just go back to class. We can provision for that. And she'd actually just thought about it. And I mean, I'm not saying that his other teacher never did, because I don't know, but she never talked to us about whether she had or hadn't. She just did the things, and then if we made a noise about it, they said, oh, well, we looked at that and it didn't matter. I didn't say like that. They said, oh, we looked, it wasn't appropriate. And I'm like, well, no, we should have that conversation. They didn't even ask if we could help, which is nice. They just said they've got it covered. We'll see how it goes. He's not given us any reason to doubt him, but I just felt really pleased. It's little things like that kind of get to me a little bit emotionally. I was sat there thinking, yes, they're including him. Something's got through, yeah. And I sort of messaged Claire about it. She was happy too. And I was trying to explain to my colleagues why I was particularly pleased about it. They just see it as a school asked if your kid wanted to go, but I don't know, it is different. And I know that a lot of you will understand why it's different. But it's pleasant. It's all good. I'll let you know how it goes tomorrow, I guess. So I had a message on Twitter asking me a very interesting question, and that was how I got into all the social media-y stuff, the podcasts, the vlogging, the this, that's, and the others that I do. And I was going to save it for another video, and then I thought, actually, today's been quite quiet, why not? So a lot of you, it's weird actually, because some of you will have been there from the very, very early days, if not the beginning. And some of you will only know of me from here, and some of you will only know of me via Kevin Chapman, and some of you will know me from Mature Gamer. And I don't think there's probably many of you who know me from the books we wrote, but there are genuinely some people out there who have messaged me in the past saying they only know we exist because of books we released. But it is a very weird situation. The long and short of it, I mean, I've always done like blogs and stuff like that since the days of LiveJournal when I was like 18, 17 at college, and usually ended up being a place for me to vent and then my mates to argue with me, and we'd all argue back and forth about something I'd said or something they'd done or whatever. I was always into writing these long drawn out journal entries or whatever. But when I went to university, where I first met Kev in 2000 and it must be 2009 because it was the year Emily was born, we didn't do anything the first year, actually. It was late on. Once we'd finished all our lessons and our assignments, we had very little going on. Kev used to drive me to and from university, which is interesting because I lived down the road from it for most of the first year, and he'd swing by someone offered to drive me on the way, and they never did. He did instead. So we used to just chat in the car and whatever. But then I moved to Deeping, where Kev lives, and we'd commute back and forth. It just become an unwritten thing. I just got free lifts to university. He never asked me for money. I never questioned it. I just got a free lift in. And we used to just have our silly conversations there and back. And I think one day we passed a sign on the way into our town that said, the best potatoes in Lincolnshire, under this guy's company. And I don't know why it even happened. We just got talking about they can't possibly be the best spuds in Lincolnshire. Like, has he tested them all? Has he gone around the whole county trying every potato? This seems really far-fetched. Like, surely you can't just say that. The best this in this place. So then I can't even remember why or how we decided this was a good idea, because we didn't do it there and then. We did it at a later date. We went to the chip shop near that guy's business and asked the chippy whether he used this guy's potatoes. And he just laughed and said, no, they're terrible. I use these spuds. They're from a place down in, I think, Boston or something. They're the best. Would you like some free chips? And just gave us chips and then for some reason chicken with it. Which we sat in his car, Kev's car, eating this chicken and chips, just laughing that the guy had just handed them over to us and it was just easy and sorted. So then we were mulling over, we'd been listening to the complete guide to everything on iTunes and a podcast called Answer Me This. And I think Kev had got me into him because he was, you know, he drove a lot. He listened to podcasts in the car or whatever. So I started listening to him. It was just when phones started to get decent enough that you could listen to them. And I think Kev said, I want to do a podcast. I was like, I'm up for that. I'm easy. I'll do a podcast, definitely. So we did the best thing from different places, which very early on was Cambridgeshire, so just down the road, Lincolnshire. We went to Rutland and met up with a lady from the Rutland Tourist Board who told us some things. We got all excited because she recognised us from our website when we went there. It didn't really count as being spotted in public, but we classed it as that and publicised it as that. We'd been spotted in Rutland. We then started going further afield, doing different places. We did like Leeds, where else did we do? Portsmouth, like Bournemouth, that kind of area. By the time we did the South Coast, we actually had listeners who were kind of regular listeners who spoke to us. Some lived further afield, some like Lee McElwain who comments on my videos. I can't remember exactly when he found it, what podcast it was, but he's been there since, you know, God knows when. I remember there being a guy who lived on the South Coast who ran a pub. We drove down and we stopped off at his pub and visited him, and he challenged Kev to get me drunk and then get me riding a horse in the New Forest. I happily got drunk. I happily did not get on a horse. Kev was driving, so I had to drink all the free beers and that. But our thing was that we used to go to breweries, go to football stadiums, try the food, see what random things were there. We ended up at the Spice Girls Museum in Leeds, saw a mummified corpse, went to Cambridge, wandered around some museums. Kev got told off for touching a 4,000-year-old stone tablet because he didn't realise you couldn't touch it. We'd gone to a museum where you could touch everything, and then we went to this museum that had proper stuff from thousands of years ago, and he just didn't know that they were different for some reason. I guess he just doesn't know museum etiquette. That was great fun, absolutely fantastic, but I don't think we ever really got above maybe 1,000 listeners at our peak towards the end. And we announced we were going to Belgium because we'd saved up some uni money and we were going to do I think it was our 30th episode. So we'd been doing it for quite a while because they were out every 2-3 weeks. Maybe no, it was weekly even at that point. Yeah, it was weekly. So we'd got our 30th episode and we announced we were going to Belgium, and then we just stopped doing it. I think something broke and we just couldn't afford to fix it or replace it, so we stopped. And it all went a bit quiet. And then Kev was on a gaming website, funnily enough, called maturegamer.com, I believe. And I moved again and he came around my house to help me set some stuff up. We were like screwing in a table and this sort of stuff. And he put on a gaming podcast that we were listening to. And he liked it, but I was kind of like, these guys are really boring. Like, I consider myself into gaming, but oh my God, this is boring. And he's like, you got to kind of get to know the hosts. Like, once you get to know them, it's more entertaining. And he was right, it was entertaining. But we agreed we could do one as entertaining if we wanted to. So we made an agreement with the guy that ran maturegamer.com that we'd do a podcast with him. But within like 2 episodes of doing the Mature Gamer podcast, we ended up having a big falling out with the host of the site. He didn't agree with how long they were. He didn't agree with the way they were done, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's in the past. So we ended up starting our own site, maturegamerpodcast.com. I think that guy started the original Mature Gamer podcast, which kind of stopped quite quickly. And then obviously we're 7 years on from that. We've been doing that podcast pretty much every week since. I think we literally just hit podcast number 350, which is insane. Now, it's quite funny that we got into that because I considered before that I was the gamer in my family. My family would always consider me really into gaming. Growing up, I was obsessed with gaming. I always played games. I always thought, yeah, I'm a gamer. And then since doing this, I've realised that I'm nowhere near as into games as gamers are, the proper hardcore gamers. I'm not going to say I'm not a gamer because I definitely am. But I don't feel like I think there was a time when I felt quite inferior seeing how into it some of them was. Like when we met Anna and she was just the hardcorest gamer in the world. You know, plays literally everything. I couldn't believe it. I've never had the funds to have that level of interest in gaming. You know, Kev and Anna are obsessively into every game. More so Anna, but Kev just doesn't have time now. I never have time or money to do it, so I game where I can. But we've kind of we became people got really irritated quite early on with that because they were expecting us to be like IGN and Gamery News and really serious, and we learned very quickly we were just comedy with a bit of gaming along the side of it. We were just messing around. We used to call it the Top Gear of gaming, but we were obviously never that popular. So yeah, we would just chat about ourselves, have a laugh, talk about the games we played in between, and that was the format, and it worked really well. A few years into doing that, we started to think about doing Best Thing From again. I think we did a couple of trips, did a couple of podcasts, and then realised we didn't really have the funds to do it. So we ended up doing like a question and answery type thing, which we then started calling We're From the Internet. We had the ambitious aim of doing a breakfast podcast where we were going to do, it was like 5-10 minutes a day about a random topic. We'd answer questions about that topic, and then the next day we'd do something completely different, which covered like crisps, sport, wrestling, you name it. So then we started to take those topics. We'd forgotten what it is quite silly that we'd forgotten what we'd answered, so we re-answered them in book form and wrote back and forth between the two of us, just kind of until it fleshed out into a book. And then we released them. I think we released 5 of them in the end, at least 4. I remember there being 4 that we released every few months, which, you know, for someone who just chucked out books like self-published, they did all right. We were like, okay, people wanted them, they were happy with them. We got reviews. I remember being emailed by a lady from Africa who was like, I'm a 55-year-old African lady and I have no business finding you funny or entertaining, and I picked up your book because the first book was free. She said, but I've brought all of them and they were great and I really enjoyed them and I love it. And I just remember being really blown away that someone like so far away and so detached from anything we'd ever done before had found it entertaining. Because before it had all been just people like us, like Lee Macquarie, who I mentioned before. It's just a bloke around my age. I'm assuming he's a bit older than me, much taller than me as well. And he just likes our humour. Whereas this was someone who professed that she was absolutely not our demographic, because we just made it for anyone. But it was very, very nice to hear that people were enjoying it. So then we talked about doing fiction, and I remember like Kev thinking, we can't do fiction, we're not into fiction, this isn't something we can do. And I'm like, well, look, we've seen so much stuff, we're very geeky, we can do it. So we were going to an event down in London, and weirdly on the way there we planned out one book, and on the way back we planned out another. And basically one book was about we used to record in his garage, he'd do podcasts in his garage until like 1 a.m. And one day we were joking about what if we went out of the garage and the whole world had ended, because it's a fear I'd always had about going to the cinema, that it's so dark and quiet and closed off in there that when you leave anything could happen. You're detached from the world for 3 hours. So we wrote about what happens if these guys are playing a game and they went out to get some beers and like the first zombie was in their back garden and they thought they'd ended the zombie apocalypse before it could start, but actually they were patient like 1, or patient 0 was in the garden, patient 1 had carried the whole thing on from there. And we wrote this sort of, it's supposed to be a series, but we didn't bother doing a follow-up. I started writing book 2, and Kev edited book 1 to finish a different way. So I'd written it that they were all fleeing the town they were in, and Kev wrote it that all the exits out of town blew up. And then the second book was so detached from what the first book had ended up with that we just never got around to doing it. I also think we just got really busy because we became teachers. We also wrote a book about mature students going to university, which is kind of a mixture of our stories from going to uni, mainly from sort of the character that from the point of view was more like Kevin, that he'd gone to uni from like the financial crash, and the rest of his life had kind of changed dramatically. But again, I really liked writing them both. They were great stories for us to write. I've not read them since, and I daren't really, because I think we've both grown up a lot. The stuff I'm writing now on my own, I feel I'm a lot better at writing than I was when I wrote that. But we started alongside that, we did the I haven't mentioned really, and most of you will know this, but I always went by the nickname Steve, because when I met Kev, he already knew a Richard, so he called me Steve. So we did Kev and Steve's Indie Publishing Adventure, which was our beer and book writing podcast where we talked about our writing. So we did that for a while, wrote some books, then started teaching, so we completely ran out of time. So the only thing we carried on doing then was Mature Gamer, which we changed the name to MGP. That went through so many different incarnations because we had other people start doing shows under our umbrella. We had Mature Gamer Bits and PCs, we had Mature Gamer Night Shift, and they were about indie gaming and about PC gaming. They then wanted us to change the name of the overarching thing to something else. We went for Geek Culture Radio, which we tried to make a hosting platform. We ended up winning an award where basically basically you had to enter your podcast in, and they picked, I think it was like 10 winners who all got given free unlimited hosting for life for podcasts. And we entered We're From the Internet, Mature Gamer, Bits and PCs, and Night Shift, and Mature Gamer and We're From the Internet both won. So we ended up winning a double slot, but only getting one, which is I've never really thought about it till just now, but we should have got two, damn it. So we've got this unlimited hosting thing for life now, which is kind of like I think if there had been any barrier to us continuing Mature Gamer, we'd have probably lost steam a bit, but because it's just we could dump it on the internet for free, the logo's there, the hosting will never change, it's kind of sorted. We don't have any kind of problems with that. It's just making the time. So that was good. That again felt really, vindicating that we won something. We were good enough for that. Not many people obviously did. So then while we were teaching, I guess for me, things started taking a bit of a decrease. I stopped the writing. All the podcasts went except MGP. I didn't really do anything because I was just so deep into that. Ended up crashing out of it and burning and starting a new job at a new company, which I mentioned the other day. It kind of wasn't my plan, but I've rebuilt there quite nicely and I feel very happy there. Whereas Kev, on the other hand, kind of got into teaching, then his life started to get really hard at home, and you all know that journey from his YouTube channel. So he decided he couldn't balance it all and he needed to start getting away from work, and he started his YouTube ramp where he was just like, I'm going to try and get to a point where I'm making enough from YouTube that I can stop working. Anna had gone to uni, everything was balanced right, he could look after Andy and be a carer, and then it would help him go from there. I was kind of like, I can't do any of that, mate. I can't really join you on that journey. Like, he's going to me, just get a camera, start recording. We'll just get into it. He did his Football Manager and all of these things, which I was kind of like, I just don't have the bandwidth for it. So I started a website called sheepdogrights.com. I actually, weirdly, somebody on the internet was shutting down their web hosting company, and they asked if anyone would take on their customers. And I looked up how much it would cost and everything, and basically found that for £120 a year, I could buy an unlimited hosting package, and then I could charge them both £60 a year, and then it just meant I had unlimited hosting for whatever I wanted to do. So I bought the domain Sheepdog Rights and used to just try and write something every day. The idea being I'd get in the habit of writing a blog every day, and then I'd start writing my book every day, and I'd get a lot further through my book. So I ended up writing, I think I was basically churning out 1,500 words a day at least, between the blog and the book. If I didn't do the full amount in the book, I'd do it in a blog form. And then Kev kept saying to me, stop blogging and start vlogging exactly the same things you were blogging in the first place on a vlog. Just put a camera there, don't write it down, just talk at it, you'll get more traction. Because I was getting, say, 50 reads, 80 reads of a blog, and he was like, you'll get that on your vlog and then it will grow. So I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do it. And then, as you'll see from going back to the very first video, he just one day said to me, stop doing blogs or I'm going to throw a brick through your window. Just pick up your iPad or your phone or whatever and just start vlogging right now. And I'm a bit mortified, really, that I laid it on the table and just looked down at it, because I couldn't find, I'm less bothered about the backgrounds now, but at the time I couldn't find anywhere to record, so I just let it down and I thought, if I look at it, the ceiling's behind me, it's all fine. And I just talked. I just said, Kev's forced me to do it. This is my first one. Hello, everyone, blah, blah, blah. And I'm mortified that I got loads of views because Kev shared it, and it was terrible. So anyone who had any kind of quality filter was just like, no. You can see that goes from like a lot of views to not even a fraction of the views in number 2. I think by number 3, I'd obviously had some drama with my axolotl dying, and it was like, this isn't going well at all. And I've never really found a plan from there, but I've been doing the YouTubing since because I've just enjoyed it. Obviously, the situation with Ollie didn't exist then, and suddenly that came around. That's changed everything quite dramatically. People have been really supportive with that, and now I just really enjoy it. It's something I like doing. I like just sitting here talking at the camera. I'm learning to ignore those very loud background noises that are going on, the kids playing outside and the dog barking or whatever. I think when I first started, they were all very distracting. It would derail me completely. I had to stop midway through because Ollie was throwing his bike around in rage outside the window, and I could see him out the corner of my eye, and I'm thinking, I actually handled that pretty well. You couldn't tell that I was panicking about this. He was just like, kicking it and throwing it, and I'm just chatting away thinking what's happening. But it's weird, it's interesting, the skills have just grown, and it's all just been from the hobby and the hanging out with Kev and just having mad ideas and doing them. I'd recommend anybody who wanted to do a podcast, write or vlog, to just do it. If you need help with hosting any of it, I know a guy who has hosting options, and yeah, it's just really easy to set. It's the barrier for entry is really low, but you learn a lot, and by the time you're good at it, like I mean, looking at Kev's skills from just doing videos all the time and trying to see how to make each one slightly better, he used to do that on a daily basis. How can I improve? How can I improve? How can I improve? I kind of am much. I don't have the funds to do that, so I'm kind of like, I'll get this tripod for like Christmas last year. I'll get a lamp for my birthday, and I've not set up the lamp yet, but I learned how to use a tripod properly so I could do this. And it's just picking up those skills and slowly but surely just getting more confident and less worried and better at it and so forth. Eventually I'd like to clear my garage out like he did when he got to a certain point, but I just haven't got around to it. I'm just kind of, I need to jump into that. I think that'll be something that would springboard things. I could start gaming from there or whatever. But yeah, that is basically the long and short of it. We just decided to do it on a whim each time. You know, the podcast was just a conversation. The writing was just a joke that started off and then became a conversation, which we just went with. The vlog became an order, basically, because I was doing the other thing. I host stuff just because I saw an opportunity to do it. I feel like I'm always looking for something to learn and get into and try and reach, because I've always got that goal of I'd love to reach a point where I was at events just talking about whatever I do or whatever I have made. I'd like to be someone who's made something that's good enough to be like, oh, this is Sheepdog, he made this. But it's just getting there and learning the skills, and that's what all this is about. So I hope that has answered the question, and I hope you found that interesting. Those of you who have been there for most of it or heard it before in other formats, sorry that this is a bit of a repeat, but yeah, I'd happily give anyone advice on getting into anything, whatever advice I could give. Obviously I'm not as knowledgeable as someone like Kev for vlogging, but I've done everything else to an extent. I feel like I could talk about it. I'm in a writers group, and I was shocked to find I'm the most the most experienced one there. Not qualified, that's the wrong word. I've done the most in it, so I was giving them all sorts of advice about problems we've had or mistakes we've made and whatever. And yeah, I just feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge, and it's been I can't believe it's nearly been a decade. It is about, after Emily was about 1, so it hasn't, yeah, be a decade in like the new year, which is a long time to be doing stuff. And I'd like to think hopefully one day I'll be sort of higher up. But yeah, I'm going to wrap up anyway. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got any questions, I really like just getting the random tweets just saying, oh, what about this? Or how about that? Because it just makes me think about how I can answer it and what I can say. I've probably missed big steps out. There's definitely been times we've said or you've done episodes that I didn't like, or I got drunk one year and did a podcast that fortunately isn't about online because we were a bit rude on it, but that was really early days. Not anything outrageous, but just a bit, you know, a bit leery. And I think we've definitely reined it in as we've grown up, but that was, yeah, it's all part and parcel of growing in it and doing stuff. But yeah, it's been really fun and I love it, and it's a great hobby. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop doing it in one way or another unless people just say, I hate you, get off the internet, and bum rush me out of it. But I'm going to go anyway because I can sort of hear, I don't know if this is even coming through in the background, but I can hear they're all kicking off outside again. So I'm going to go. Hope you've all had a good day, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Cheers.